Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a movie review. This movie is a horror film from the United States, English language, released in the year 2020, directed by Deborah Milburn, and this film is called Honeydew. So Honeydew is about a couple. You've got an actor and his partner is a botanist, and so they go out to the middle of nowhere because she's doing a study on farm life and something that's actually happening to these farms. And so they're in the middle of nowhere, they're camping, and they're told that they can't camp on this property because this man turns up in his tractor and he says that it's his property, please get out. So they've got nowhere else to go, their car won't start, and so they seek refuge at this mysterious house that is owned by an elderly woman and her son, who appears to be handicapped. So when they get into the house, she promises that she'll ring her neighbour that lives 30 minutes away, and the neighbour will come and repair their car. But in the meantime, they're going to have dinner and they're just going to spend some time together. But the more the night progresses, the weirder things get, and a secret behind this woman's house actually comes out into the open and provides something very deadly. So what that deadly aspect is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I am going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Honeydew. This is a movie that I'd heard floating around for quite a while. I didn't really want to go out of my way to see it. Now everyone is saying that this is Sawyer Spielberg's debut performance in a movie. Sawyer Spielberg is Steven Spielberg's son, and that's not really an enticing aspect for me. You know, Sawyer Spielberg meant nothing to me, and just the fact that he's someone's son who happens to be a legendary filmmaker doesn't really get me excited. So I knew that this was around, but I just didn't go out of my way to go and see it. So I saw the trailer, I thought this looks interesting enough, it looks very weird, and that's my type of horror film, but I was going to see it once I got the opportunity, but I wasn't going to put this at the front of my list. So finally getting the chance to see Honeydew, I will say that I was actually quite underwhelmed with this experience. Now there are aspects of this movie that were really good, but ultimately the movie felt underwhelming. It just didn't feel like it had the punch that it really needed to, because the clarity wasn't there in the direction. The story didn't really know where to go, and it didn't really have the content to make a feature film. It felt like a short movie idea that was elongated to a point where I felt as though there was a lot of repetitive quality in this movie, and it just didn't really get going. The movie promises something really big, but it never quite delivers it, because I don't think the movie really knows how to. So that was ultimately the biggest problem. But what I liked about Honeydew was that it was very strange, it was a very stylish sort of horror film, and it does a very good job at that atmospheric net that catches the audience and makes you feel like something is off. You're not quite sure what is off, but you know that something is not right. And that uncertainty as to whether or not this couple are actually in danger from a seemingly harmless elderly woman, I thought was the creepiest aspect, is that atmospherically it does build into a snowball effect. And so as the situation starts to spiral on, I thought, all right, well, you have to get yourself out of this situation. But again, the uncertainty of not knowing whether or not you are in fact in danger, there is a difference between feeling as though you're in danger and just feeling creeped out. So that creepy sort of intensity is always sustained, and that is down to the fact that the cinematography was actually quite inventive. The way that the movie goes through transitions from one scene to another, I thought was very effective. Thought the soundtrack at the start of the film was very creepy, and it really gets you off guard. So the elements are there to make a really good horror film, and I thought that Barbara Kingsley, who plays the elderly woman, was the star of the movie. She was basically everything that makes Honeydew, in that she was very creepy, she had that seemingly harmless effect, but you knew that she was unhinged. And so was she dangerous, or was she just this harmless, strange, eccentric lady? So I really like the aspect of the suspense, and there is an aspect of the barn. There's a barn near the house, and you're not quite sure what's inside the barn. And so it does play a very psychological effect, and I thought the majority of that aspect was actually well done, but unfortunately that is basically where the positives stop, and this is where the negatives begin. The movie does get very repetitive. As I said, the soundtrack gets very repetitive, the way that the camera is used gets very repetitive, and I felt as though it ran out of ideas. And when it ran out of ideas, it didn't have a plan B to sustain that interest. And so after a while, I started drifting in and out of the experience. I thought the movie took way too long to get to its point. So it was elongating, it was stalling itself for as long as possible just to get to that 90-minute runtime, whereas I just thought as though it needed a solid plan to really play off the effects. And so the really positive aspects of this movie can only take the movie so far before they start to run out, and those positive aspects need something to bounce off, it needs something to have a backup, but unfortunately the movie doesn't have backup. So the soundtrack and the audio the score of the film at the start was very effective, but then it started to really become a little bit grating. It became a little bit irritating because I kept on hearing it. It was overused to a point where it was trying to smash you over the head with the creepiness. And so it didn't really need that because the creepiness was evolving in a very natural way, but unfortunately I just thought as though it ran out of steam and it didn't know where to go. It just thought, okay, I'm going to recycle the stuff that I did very well at the start of the movie, but unfortunately it does become apparent. So the overall idea of the film, there are a lot of unanswered questions. And now I like unanswered questions, but unfortunately there were interesting aspects that are not really developed in a way where I felt satisfied. I thought Sawyer Spielberg's performance was very forgettable. He had no charisma. I didn't really care about the character. In fact, it did become irritating after a while. The performances from these main two characters, Barbara Kingsley as the elderly woman was fantastic, but no one else was really there to play off her performance, so I thought as though her character deserved a better film. And the overall end of the movie, it's very unclear as to what the movie wanted to be, and yes, it could leave it up to your interpretation, but unfortunately there's not enough clues to piece together what direction the movie wanted to go in, so it felt lost. It felt like a very uneven sort of project in that it had really good qualities, but it didn't know what to do with those qualities. And so Deborah Milberg, the director, I just don't think he handled it very well. I just don't think it had a lot of clarity in the way that it wanted to go, and unfortunately at the end of it, it does come across as slightly pretentious, and unfortunately it should have been a lot better than it was. But I felt as though it was a short story idea that was trying to be elongated into a feature film, but unfortunately it doesn't have the content, therefore it does become quite stale and outstays its welcome well before the end. So it has a disturbing sort of aspect, a disturbing idea, but the clarity is not there, therefore the idea can't really blossom out as much as I really wanted it to. So overall, for Honeydew, going to give this one 2 stars. I was slightly disappointed with it. Yes, it does have qualities that will make it watchable, but unfortunately after you see the film, you'd probably forget it very soon because it just doesn't have that clear idea that I really wanted it to. So unfortunate, but not every film can be a knockout. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.